Game Informer had to lie about Elden Ring on the Nintendo Switch 2, and it's an all too familiar thing that we've seen when it comes to the platform. Major websites, YouTubers, people just in general, lying one way or another, manipulating data, or just being flat out weird just because they need to. And the issues with the current day, how algorithms work, and what's happening. So we're going to break down what happened here in this little mini controversy that people talked about, where it all started, what's happening, and why does it keep happening, seemingly only with the Nintendo Switch 2 at times. Now don't get me wrong, there's clickbait all over the place. We've seen it for multiple platforms, but it seems like Switch 2 clickbait and lying hit crazy amounts last year and has steadily kind of worked its way into sometimes this year with certain websites. So we're going to talk about that and a bit more. But before we continue, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 at 140,000 subscribers or on September 1st, whichever comes first. Subscribe, like, comment. The winner will be chosen at random and it's a worldwide giveaway. Thanks, peeps. Okay, let's start off here with Twitter. I want to let you guys know before I get into any of this, I was a huge Game Informer fan back in the day. I had a subscription. I used to get all the magazines for years. I used to read them. This was before YouTube, before the internet kind of took over, kind of before like all of that, right? Before like internet news and all the stuff that happened. So just keep that in mind. But I was a huge fan. I used to read all the reviews. I used to get excited about the previews. I used to be all about Game Informer, and I think that they had good people there. Now, I don't know about this reboot. I know they went out of business, or they kind of shut down and they kind of came back. I don't know who's there now. It could be some of the original people, could not be. I'm not sure what they're doing, but it's a name that many people grew up with in the 2000s. I know for me, it was really kind of like 2000s where Game Informer was like one of the top places, along with IGN, GameTrailers.com. There was a number of websites that were just great for gamers back then, and the clickbait and some of the stuff was not needed because you had the games, because you had the reviewers, because you had the access. Things have changed at this point. We're going to get into that, but let's hear where the controversy started. On Twitter, it says, Game Informer, Elden Ring on Switch 2, the worst way to play the best game. So people are thinking the worst way to play the best game. Remember, Elden Ring is on a multitude of platforms. It's on PS4 base, it's on Xbox One base, it's on a Steam Deck, it's on PS5, it's on Xbox Series S and X. Like, it's on a lot of different stuff. So Switch 2 is the worst way. Some people were thinking about it in a way of like, oh, well, wait a minute, it's the worst way when you can play portable. You can't play portable with a lot of the other bigger systems, so how can it be the worst way? I've heard that it runs pretty stable, that it runs good. What's going on here? Like, what is happening? Why are they saying this? And the interesting thing is that in a, I would say, bout of clarity, or maybe even feeling guilty about it, because once again, Game Informer was known or kind of had the reputation of not doing like the clickbait stuff. They kind of did great reviews, previews, and they didn't need to do all that. But this is the time that we're living in here, guys. This is why they had to lie. So on the review, I clicked on the website and it says Elden Ring on Switch 2, the worst way to play the best game. And then in the first paragraph, like the first sentence, it says, firstly, I admit my headline is hyperbolic. Best and worst are subjective, and neither word is fully applicable when it comes to Elden Ring on Switch 2. So he flats out just admits it right there. Doesn't really apply to it. The wordier, more accurate headline that would not inspire the precious clicks that we need to survive in this media crosses out hellscape landscape is, quote, Elden Ring is okay on Switch 2, so if you can play it somewhere else, I would recommend that, but if this is your only option and you haven't already played it, then this version will get the job done. And even that in itself is a lie. Like, that in itself is uninformed. And I'll tell you guys the reason why it's uninformed. Now, he does talk about 60 FPS and all that, but it's uninformed because you have to remember when this game came out and relative to what's happening right now. Now, they did get community noted on Twitter, so I want to read that real quick, then I'll get into what I was saying there. And the community note says, The Game Informer article admits the headline is hyperbolic, stating Elden Ring on Switch 2 is okay, playable with consistent frame rate, not 60, and will get the job done. If it is the only option, though, with compromises versus PS5 PC, it scores a 91 on Metacritic. So the vigilant people over on Twitter making sure that they're not getting any ad revenue from that. But getting back to there, even that last part is wrong, because I'm not sure why people assume that everybody has a PS5 or Xbox Series or high-end PC when clearly everybody doesn't that has access to the PS4 or Xbox One. There are more Xbox Ones and PS4s that have access to Elden Ring than PS5 and Xbox Series systems. The PS4 and the Xbox One, which Elden Ring did launch on both of those platforms and sold on both of those platforms. Now, don't get me wrong. I think most people probably bought it on PS5 or PC or somewhere else, Xbox Series or whatever, but we don't really know the splits. And once again, he says, if you can play it somewhere else, I would recommend that. So you'd recommend playing it on the Xbox One, the original Xbox One? Well, let's take a look at how it performs on the original Xbox One.
To cut to the chase a bit, let's kick off with the base Xbox One version. Really, this is the worst of the four, the one with the heaviest compromises in both playability and visuals. We saw it during the network beta, of course, so maybe we shouldn't be too surprised. Again, developer From Software uses several tricks to try squeeze base Xbox One into a playable state at a 30 FPS target. Just emerging to Limgrave, a low setting is used for environmental shadows. Grass density also uses the engine's very lowest setting. It's worse than the base PS4 version all round, which I'll get to, in both grass and shadows, and ultimately it makes Limgrave look barren and lacking any depth.
You can see in the video how it plays. Looks like it's running better and looking better than the PS4 and Xbox One, and especially the Steam Deck. And once again, he says here if you can play it somewhere else. So what if you have a Steam Deck? Is it better on there? So no, that's three systems right there off the top that the Switch 2, based off of what we know about it, based off the initial tests and everything, the Switch 2 version is better than Steam Deck, Xbox One, and base PS4 from what I've seen. Now, you guys let me know in the comment section there, but I would say at the bare minimum, Steam Deck for sure, like 100%. Even if you want to dispute Xbox One and PS4, which based on what I've seen, once again, I think it plays better and looks better on Switch 2, but even if you wanted to dispute that, Steam Deck, it's clearly more stable and better on the Switch 2 over that system, and looks a lot better as well with the resolution and everything like that. Plus you get the dock play, the portable play. It's just way better, whereas Steam Deck doesn't change when you dock it or anything like that. So to me, even that first paragraph when he tries to correct himself is even still wrong and a lie at the end of the day, or highly misinformed when it comes to informing the readers on what's correct with the Nintendo Switch 2 version of Elden Ring. But it kind of points to like the greater thing here that I've talked about before and that I've talked about with various other websites and things like that. Even if you're at the top, and a website like IGN, they also have to get their clickbait in. Everybody has to get their clickbait in one way or another, manipulating it, kind of doing certain things. Everybody does, but it gets crazy with the Switch 2 because they see the success other people have had clickbaiting and kind of baiting people to kind of get angry or upset when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2. We saw a lot of the lies, the manipulation, the weird stuff that happened before the launch and after the launch. People trying to say that the Switch 2 sales are terrible, just lying through their teeth for clickbait, or trying to make it seem as if people are just so angry with their Switch 2 purchase and nobody likes it. And we saw what happened there. People were watching that. And a lot of those people obviously have left and abandoned the content creators that said that type of stuff because they're liars, and we all know that they're liars. But at the same time, this is the type of stuff that they're chasing because unfortunately for a lot of these websites like Game Informer, they're getting lapped, they're getting surpassed, they're getting beat by content creators and clickbaiters when it comes to certain like things, and they have to try to keep up. They have to try to adapt to stay alive. And he even admits that the media hellscape or landscape, as he says, has changed so much since the exclusive preview days of Game Informer. So I think that's kind of what's going on there. That's why they had to, or why they feel like they had to. And they saw what happens with Switch 2 when you write titles like that. Look at even just the likes and the amount of attention that this tweet got from them compared to all their other tweets or other reviews. It's just not even close, at least with the recent stuff that they're doing. And they post a lot different articles and things like that. I think that if you look at even like reviews, right? Game Informer was known for their previews, for their in-depth looks, and their reviews. Even if you look at that, they're getting lapped. They're getting beat out pretty easily by really hardcore in-depth reviewers like SkillUp or like the Before You Buy, Jake Baldinos of the world and all that, Gamer Ranks and all that. They're getting beat on all facets. And it's not just them. There's many more other content creators and many other like hardcore Elden Ring players like Oro and stuff like that, to where you can watch their review and they're going to give you a much more in-depth, they're going to give you a better perspective, or they're going to give you a more in-depth perspective, because that's all they do, that's all they focus on, and that's all they hone in on when it comes to their craft. So I think that's the problem that Game Informer and a lot of these sites are kind of dealing with right now when it comes to that, where they're not the head honcho anymore. They're not the only people, one of the very few major websites with access to games and with reviews. There's many other people doing it. Many other people have gotten better or get more attention than them, and things like this is their opportunity to clickbait, as they see, to kind of clickbait and get some type of attention on their website, because unfortunately it just seems the talent just isn't there to kind of get the clicks and the views and all of that. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But I will say also this, man, like if you look at it, when you try to watch some of the normal content, like that's why like Kotaku, Polygon, you look at their normal content, non-clickbait stuff, and it's terrible. Like their news shows and things like that, it's awful. You might as well just watch Spawnwave, or you can watch myself, or you can watch pretty much anybody else, RGT or other people that are doing news that's going to give you it more concise, going to give you it more realistic, not going to act all super weird when it comes down to things. So I think that's also what's happening too right now, is that they're getting lapped on all fronts, on the news front, on the review front, on the presentation front. I mean, you're going to have reviewers, they're going to be able to give you way better edited videos, bigger, elaborate things that are happening. Heck, even Angry Joe's still at it to this day, you know, when it comes down to that. And he's going to give you like a whole show in his reviews. So I do think that's kind of what's going on right now, you know, and that's why they felt like they needed to do this, is because they needed to make a splash, because it's tough, because they're not making as much money. But there is a part of me that respects at least them saying that from the very beginning. A lot of these other websites won't say that. They won't tell you straight up. They'll kind of act all like it's, oh, them just being completely honest, and that's how they feel, when it's, no, they're just trying to get clicks. Like, it's a clickbait type of thing. Of course, they want you to read the review or watch their video and all that, but it's really just like a clickbait type of thing. So, for me at least, I've watched a number of Elden Ring Nintendo Switch 2 version videos. Botox, he did a pretty good video on that. Oro also did a little mini review on Twitter. There's also been some other pretty cool comparisons that I've seen and other things. So it's awesome. Like, it's good to see that. It's not perfect from what I've read. I also did a roundup of the reviews that we've gotten so far. 91 average on Metacritic. That is the highest rated AAA third-party game on the Nintendo Switch 2 right now. So that kind of did the impossible there. So that's interesting to see, especially because a lot of the older ports on Switch 2 don't manage to break the 90 plus Metacritic. Like, usually if it's a port on Switch 2 from like 2 or 3 or even more years ago, you're not going to get, you know, that high of a score. You're going to be somewhere lower, even if it's a really good game like Street Fighter 6, for example. That ain't get as high as the PlayStation and Xbox version. So I do believe that this one here with Elden Ring, despite some of the parabacks, which, you know, the 30 FPS, or it runs above 30 FPS docked at least, but it does not hit 60 FPS. I think it runs between somewhere between like 30 and 35 FPS a lot of the time. Some dips here and there, but it's still very stable and graphically looks pretty good compared to the PS5 version of the game. So I think that based off of what I've read from the game, based off of what people have shown off, I think that it's a solid version of the game. Like also even Game Informer says here, I think it's a good version. If you want to hear more about what reviewers had to say about it, check out my video where I talk about Elden Ring Tarnished Edition doing the impossible on the Nintendo Switch 2. I'll have a link for you in the description of this video if you want to check it out, or at the end of the video, I'll have it up on the screen too. So what do you think about Game Informer having to lie or manipulate or just flat out be wrong on Elden Ring on the Nintendo Switch 2? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. All right, peeps, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.